Good morning, everyone. Can you actually? Yeah, you can. I have sound. All right. Thanks for coming. We're a bit spread out because the room is quite wide, so I'll try and make sure I include all of you, but it's kind of hard when you're on that side, but I'm sure we'll manage. I don't know if you noticed my beautiful graphic. I'll just do it again. You ready? I didn't do it again. PowerPoint. Hi. So first things first, I don't have a HoloLens yet, right? And that's okay. Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying it, right? I don't mind. But it doesn't matter because I'm guessing neither do you, right? And I want to show you how you can develop for it. So if I was showing you how to develop it on an actual HoloLens, what were you going to do, right? So yeah, sure, it takes a little bit of the wow factor off, but I promise you there'll be lots of goodies, all right? I have ordered it. I have used one. It just hasn't arrived because there's a whole bunch of stuff of you have to go to the US and have US address and so there's a few hoops to jump through. But let me just make clear that I don't work for Microsoft. I have nothing to do with the HoloLens team. So any questions you might have around what's going to happen and all that, it'll just be speculation because I just don't know. But I love the technology, and I hope you will too in about an hour because it's absolutely unbelievable. So I get these stickers that says MVP because I'm really loud about this stuff because I love it. And that means that Microsoft likes usually what I'm saying. That's all that means. I do some Pluralsight courses. If you haven't heard of Pluralsight, please go out and talk to the girls out on the stand. Get a free trial or whatever it is they have. It's a massive amount of training resources, just unbelievable. 4,800 courses now or something. So I've been doing a few of those, not as much lately because I cloned. And I have a website if you want to know more about any of this stuff as well. So please don't be this audience, okay? Please don't just sit there and go, oh, right? I'd much rather you were these guys, right? You know, pick me, I got a question. Hey. I love questions. Please do ask. There's no stupid questions. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. I won't just make up stuff. No. Just give me a sec, and I'll go to the questions. I will be doing some tweeting throughout the session. So if you follow me there, there's more information about some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And it's all done through Magic, just like the HoloLens. Sure. Time tweets, you know. So the current status, right? Because how many here write software? Awesome. Fantastic. That's cool. Like, that's pretty much everyone. Is there any managers here that don't write software? All right, because you were going to get thrown out. Now you won't. But that's cool because we all live in the same space. Yes, some might write, functional programming or Python or Ruby or .NET or whatever it is your thing is. But we all write software to some extent, right? So currently what we do is we either write these. So they're like a mobile apps. There's lots of those, whether it's a web app or it's a native app or whatever it is you want to do. There's tons of them, right? Are we up to 1 billion apps yet? I don't think so. A couple of millions at least, right? Or we do this. We do desktop software or websites that people watch or view and use on a standard monitor, right? Or we might be doing gaming. Does anyone here do games or that sort of? Do you develop games? Oh, yeah, you should. It's awesome. Because if you do have a bit of an advantage in doing HoloLens development. And I'm not a 3D designer or gamer, so I think we're all on the same page. And you even might be pointing at the same screen, as in collaboration, right? You sit around a screen or something. My point with this is, it's all 2D. All of this is on a flat surface that you go somewhere and you're looking at, oh, there's a computer over there. I'll just walk over here and I'll get it, right? And it just gets a little bit tedious, right? It's just a little bit monotonous if you've been doing it for 20 years like I have. There's new stuff comes out all the time, and there's noun.js every day comes out, right? And you can try, right? But it's more the same thing. So just to give you an idea of where all this fits in, there are different types of what I've decided to call digital realities. Does anyone here has like an Oculus or a Vive or, yeah? Okay, cool. So there's some virtual reality guys here. That's cool, because you will probably have a better sense of what I'm going to talk about. So virtual reality is a complete virtual world, right? So someone has designed the world that you're going to look at. It's all of it. There's nothing of that is your real world. And that is great for prototyping or for scenarios where you want to display, say, a location, excuse me, or you want to have I've heard of a forklift simulator for learning how to drive a forklift. Those scenarios are really good, right? Because you can look around, you go, oh, there's the buttons, and there's really, really good scenarios for it. It is limited physical movement because you can't see where you're going. So there's always pros and cons, right? So that's your virtual reality. Then you have augmented reality, and augmented is the best examples I've seen are sort of one-off. So you go, oh, there's a thing that I recognize, and when I point my phone at it, I can see something on the screen, right? So a really, really cool example I saw was of a boat, a brochure for a boat. And you point your app or whatever it is at that brochure, and the boat pops up and starts floating around on the brochure, right, through your phone. Looks amazing, absolutely magnificent, right? They're often very simple. They're often very sort of a lightweight app, if that makes sense, you know? We're talking bits and bytes. But, and it's in its overlay of data. So it's different for virtual reality is that you have your actual reality, but you see it through a device, usually like a phone or something like that. And very often there's a trigger point that needs to be seen in order to do this sort of interaction. And then there is a term that Microsoft has coined, which is mixed reality. And I kind of like it. You know, it's not, this is where HoloLens falls into. It's not really augmented, it's not really virtual. It's a mixed sense of, well, you have holograms that you place wherever you are. And that's the key. You're not limited to a virtual space. You're not limited to having a trigger point. It's wherever you are, right? So it's in your space that you place these holograms that interact with the physical world. And often what you get is that you get virtual reality looking like this, right? Because it's so immersive. Virtual reality just consumes all of your reality. And you get these reactions to these, you know, or you've seen, I don't know, you've probably seen the video with the guy that tries the roller coaster and someone goes, ding, and he just loses balance completely, and for about 30 seconds he's trying to stand up. Because your inner ears and all your physical functions of your body can't relate to what you're seeing. And that's the challenge with virtual reality. But it can get kind of cool, actually. You know, see? There are some really good scenarios for it, right? There's some really cool stuff you can do. So you got sunning, right? But by the way, I actually found out how they did HoloLens. Does anyone know what the technology is that's inside of HoloLens? No? No? It is pure magic. It feels like this. When you put it on, it feels like magic because how did that never mind. It's just, it blows your mind. And I've spoken to guys that have had the HoloLens since the first wave, so 4 months thereabouts. They still get their mind blown, right? And both socks goes off and everything. It's really quite impressive. Oh, sorry, I'm sick of this guy now. So this is the bit that, the more I got into HoloLens, looking at it, the more I compared it with VR and AR, and my main question was, when is it a HoloLens app, right? Because it's really, really easy to get into this trap of saying, okay, I have this really cool idea. I'll overlay this data on everywhere you look, like that building. They'll show you how many people are in it and all that stuff. But there's no reason you couldn't do that with a much smaller, cheaper device as augmented reality. So at what point do you get to, this is a HoloLens experience? And the last time I did this talk, I actually got in trouble from another HoloLens developer because I kind of said that his wasn't, in my world, a HoloLens experience. Beautiful app. And I kind of, I just did it again, didn't I? No, it was a good point of what, in my world, it is. You know, so it doesn't matter I mean, it's up to you what you think a HoloLens experience is. But to me, it's important that it interacts with the real world. For example, if you put a holographic ball on a table and you lift the table, the ball should fall off, right? The hologram should interact 100% with your real world in a way that you can't do with augmented or virtual reality. So that's kind of my definition of it. This is cool because that's the first, one of the earliest prototype picture I could find of the HoloLens. And effectively, do you know what that is up there? It's a Kinect. So an Xbox Kinect he's got on his head, right? Because that's it. There's the spatial mapping of the device is so powerful. I guess that's where they started out. People see the HoloLens, they go, oh, wow, that took you 5 years, really? And then you just kind of see where they started, right? OK, before we look at how we code for it, let's just look at some of the specs for it. So it runs Windows 10, full version of Windows 10, HoloLens edition, obviously, because there's HoloLens-specific things in it. But this means that you can run universal apps on it. Are there anyone here who does WPF or XAML apps in general? There's a few. OK, oh, cool. So all the skills that you have for UWP, you can reuse here. It is just a universal Windows platform app, or UWP app, which is very cool. So if you create a 2D app that works on your phone, well, you can launch it to HoloLens as well as a 2D image in space. Granted, it's not what we just talked about as a HoloLens experience, but it does work on HoloLens. Has an Intel processor, 32-bit, which I was a bit surprised about, but I guess it doesn't matter too much. Usually 64-bit just takes longer because there's more stuff to process. It has an HPU. Ever heard of that? Me neither. A holographic processing unit. And I'm guessing it's some sort of graphic accelerator. That's what it's called. Specifically designed for this device. And I have heard numbers like 1 trillion calculations a second or something. Like, I don't know if that's true. But it's supposedly extremely powerful because holograms is rendering 3D in real time. And you can have an enormous amount of holograms. 2 gigabytes of RAM. Again, that seemed not very much. But OK. 64 gigabytes of storage, which is obviously for installing all your apps and the OS. It has 4 mics and 4 speakers. So we'll get more into the mics and the speakers. But it's super accurate. The microphone with Cortana is super accurate. And it has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection. But see, those are all just, we put that in the device, you go, woo. The main thing for me that puts this apart from Oculus and from Vive, from any of the other mixed reality or digital reality devices, is the fact that it's untethered. There is no wire coming out of this thing. It is completely a standalone device that you have in your head, right? So that is important because I can stand here, if I had one, and I could walk out to the foyer and put a hologram there and walk back again. I walk out there again, and the hologram's still there, right? I'm not limited by cables, which is what you get with virtual reality, which is OK because you can't see where you're going anyway. But this is a huge differentiator in my book anyway. OK. One sort of disclaimer. This is often what you see. This is a HoloLens, and the guy goes, oh, and you got sharks. Must be Australia, right? She's getting eaten by a shark or something. And there's a sea floor, and it all looks cool. What you actually see is more like this, right? Your field of view is not very big. It is kind of like having a box in front of your head, which is why when I'll show you some of the demos, the guys sort of do this, right? They look like a bit robotic because they can't see. They're trying to look at everything. So that is important because that has a big impact on how you design your app, because your visuals might not be there, but the sound of the visuals might be, and that sort of stuff. But that often catches people out because you see all these glorious marketing images of a full world of holograms, which is there. You just can't see them all. So that's important to bear in mind. Now, with the feel of the viewing through the HoloLens, Microsoft created this amazing camera. I just want to show you this video. I think I have to click play here somehow.
Sax grabbed his Xbox controller to play through a giant holographic portal into a 3D Minecraft world right on the wall. Even though I don't have a HoloLens, I'm able to play together with Sax from my Surface.
Are you going to come join my game, Lydia?
I'm in now.
I see you, jumping around.
One of the cool things about HoloLens is that it lets you display Minecraft virtually anywhere.
That's the camera.
You can get different perspectives on your Minecraft world. It's awesome to play with the controller, but could we show them something new, Sax?
Sure. Let's take our experience off the wall and then put it on the table over here. Create world. I see Lydia way up there.
As I run around the place, Sax can easily navigate and manipulate the world using his voice and his hands. He can walk around the hologram, pan around for different viewpoints, and even look inside.
That's pretty cool, eh? Like that gives you an idea of what is possible. This is actually quite an old demo, but it still is super powerful, and who doesn't like Minecraft, right? We're all geeks. So this is the kind of scenario that Microsoft's trying to push, not just in terms of gaming, but there's collaboration. I don't know if you noticed, but Zach was actually using a lot of the interaction points that the HoloLens has, which I'll go through in a minute. So now we sort of set the scene of what this device is. Is there any questions around the hardware or the idea or anything? Yes, Mr. VR. VR. That's because you said you had Oculus. Sorry. So the question is, do they build a special camera? Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine there's only 1 or 2 of those cameras to showcase what the HoloLens looked like. But they had to, I guess, in order to sell the idea to an audience. Yeah. So I wish I had that, and never mind. Anyone else? All right, cool. So building blocks, because this is the nitty-gritty of it, right? We want to know how we actually build these experiences. And it is really, the basics of it is really quite simple. The idea of it is not difficult because there's so much work put into you not having to worry about all of the details of people throwing up and getting motion sickness and all that stuff. So first there's gaze. The gaze is kind of like your mouse cursor. So if you think of your head as the mouse, I know, that is the idea. And that's why it takes a little while to get used to wearing a HoloLens, because the paradigm is slightly different. So, God, he's creepy. The gaze is the center of your head. So it's not your eyes, it's not tracking your eyes. The center of your head is where you're looking, right? And it says here, raycast. That's the object we'll look at in a minute. The raycast is where am my gaze landing? Which objects am I interacting with, right? So let's have a look at that. We'll see if we can find some. So first, let me just show you. Oh, wow, that looks interesting. Does anyone here use Unity? OK, a couple of people. You have a huge advantage, because you cannot develop for HoloLens without Unity. It's just not possible now. I think Microsoft would tell you that you can use any editor you want, but the fact is that Unity is now so heavily integrated with Visual Studio and the whole HoloLens experience that you're not seeing that. Come on, tell me. Jeez. OK. That's what I said. Don't be that North Korean audience, right? And? All right, anyone wants a coffee? OK, let me just do this. Because all these projections are always different. OK. Hey, there we go. So you need Unity, right? And this is, I'm using a Microsoft example on purpose because I want you to go out and do this as well, right? This is a tutorial you can do right now on the HoloLens developer portal. So this is called Origami because there's some paper things there. No, I can't see anything. And these are the objects that come with it. So these are 3D objects that have been created in some other 3D program, right? So Unity is very good at manipulating 3D objects and showing them and giving them motions and scripts and all that. Actually designing the objects is more like, here's a block, right? So you need a 3D designer or some form of help if you're not capable of that yourself to create an experience that is convincing. And this looks really scary. When I first opened Unity, you can't hear me. All of these values here just look like, oh God, my brain's about to explode. And the trick is to just ignore it all. And then just say, oh, I need that bit, and then learn what that bit does, right? So don't be too scared. This essentially is your solution. You have some assets down here. There's your workspace. And here's the properties of whatever object you're pressing, right? So it's kind of like Visual Studio if that's your tool of choice. It has some similarities, and that helps your brain not explode. So I'm not going to go through Unity because that would just be boring. But just know that it's there. And there's full integration in Visual Studio. So you can go something like File, Build Settings. And that shows up on this screen. That's brilliant. And you get something like that. And you can then choose universal apps and all the right settings and whatnot, right? And it exports it into Visual Studio. And off you go. So that's not difficult, even though it looks very scary. So now you can't see that one either. There we go. Let's start over here. So I was talking about gaze, right? And there are always, so these are scripts that are attached to the objects in Unity. And these scripts always have a start, and they always have an update. Start runs when it's initialized. Update runs every frame. So that's how you interact with your objects. Every frame is 60 times a second. If you have frame rate lower than that, you're doing something wrong. And you will most likely make your users sick. The frame rate is super important. If you don't get 60 frames a second, you get vomit, pretty much. This case here, we just have, so there's our raycast. And every frame, we get the head position and the gaze direction. So the head position is where your head is, right, and whether you're turning it. It's super, super accurate. And the gaze is where in 3D space are you aiming your head. And then all you do is you get the raycast with those properties. And then you go in and you say, if raycast, so if I have hit anything, if I have hit an object in my world, in my space, then we do all this. And we find the hit point. There we go. Display the cursor. So enable the cursor. That's your mouse cursor, which is your head. Remember? Yeah. So this again, we can sort of go similarities there. And then this, I don't even know how to say that. That just means that it's actually hugging the 3D surface, so it looks like it belongs. So it's not, in this case, actually, I didn't show you the, so this is our cursor. OK, we're just going to, that's the cursor, right? So it's a ring, 3D ring. That's our mouse cursor. So that's all you have to do. That's how you get a cursor that shows, yes?
When you say hit, are you hitting a virtual thing or a real thing?
A virtual. Yes, virtual. No, sorry, you're hitting both. Yeah, just had to get that right. Yeah, you're hitting both because the HoloLens does spatial mapping. As you move your head, it maps the room in real time, right? So it doesn't know where you are, but it knows where you're looking, and by that event, it maps the space you're in and places the holograms accordingly.
So if you see nothing, the thing you might be seeing is too far away?
Yep, or someone stood in front of it. Yeah. If you have a HoloLens hologram here and I go in front of it, you can't see it anymore. Correct. Yep. And then I'll show you that in a minute. Anyway. So, God, it's hard when I can't get my screen right. So here is the emulator, right? Because we don't have a HoloLens. So we're using the emulator. And it's surprisingly accurate, actually. So I'm just going to run this, F5. Going? Yep. And there's some tricks, but the life cycle, or the development cycle, I should say, of producing these is a little bit tedious. Because you got to go into Unity. This is why I only do this once. You got to go into Unity, and you got to edit your world. You got to compile it to a Visual Studio project, open that in Visual Studio again, then compile it, then deploy it to the hologram. So if you do changes 5 times a minute, like I do sometimes, oh God. But there are ways around that with some smart scripts and whatnot that some other HoloLens developers have come up with. Yes? So what is limiting the field of view? Why do we only have that letterbox is the question. I actually don't know. I'm guessing it's a combination of processing power. You have to magically come up with all that. Sorry again? That's the 32-bit processor as well as the HPU. And it probably has something in relation to RAM as well. And it might just be the hardware just can't show you that much. There's multiple reasons. I'm sure they'll improve on it, no doubt. Could also be that if you had a 180-degree view, you would have a battery life of 8 minutes, right? Like something like that. So there's multiple factors that would play into this. So here's our HoloLens Emulator. And all I'm doing is, with my hands, is I'm using the arrow keys and the good old gaming WASD for the 3D space here, right? So I'm moving in 3D space. This is where we are. And see when I go over here, the center of, oh, there's a cursor, right? And it's hugging the surface. So that's how we select things. And it is that simple. Raycast.hit info, whatever it was. That's it. That's how you get your cursor to do something. And then in a minute, I'll show you how we do events and all that sort of stuff, right? The other thing I just want to mention, to make sure I'm on time here, is that there is this, which will open in this window. Yes, it will. So this is the HoloLens portal. And this also works for the physical device if you had one as well. But because the emulator is a Hyper-V instance, it runs its own IP and machine, and you can connect to it like any other machine. And you get this portal. And I won't go through the whole thing, but this thing here, click on it, edit, the 3D view. So this is what you are seeing out of the HoloLens emulator. Now, the really cool thing is I have rooms, right? So I can go update. And it builds the room I'm in for me. So these are rooms that comes with the emulator. I think there's 4. And these are actual data collected by a HoloLens at some point that they put in. So you have a room. You don't just have black space. There are ways of showing the space, but it's because it's spatial mapping, it shows all the polygons of the room. And it's quite confusing if you see it for the first time, so I won't do it. But there's a way to see what's in the room. So let me just go back here, actually. Yep. So in here, I do the same thing. Again, I can use my mouse keys and whatnot. And I can use scroll in and scroll out. And we're in the room. And now, see if this works on the screen. If I move this a little bit. Here. And then I move in the emulator. I'll go forward. You can see that that correlates to that, right? So I work with 3 screens. I don't work with 1. So you put this on a different screen, right? But you can see where you are as if you had the HoloLens on. And granted, it is not like having a HoloLens. It really isn't. But it is as close as you're going to get. And it actually works quite well for developing. There's no way I would put out an app to the real world if I hadn't tried it on a HoloLens first, of course. But you can get 80% of the way. Right. Any questions around that? Yes?
Any idea if there's like a room limit for the size or something? Because you mentioned like you can put a hologram over there, walk to the other side, and go back. But I'm assuming that it has a memory of the room itself.
So is there a limit to the room size or where you walk with it?
Yeah, because if like you leave a hologram over there, it's mapping that there's a table on that side, and walk to the other side of this room, there's a big room.
I don't know what the limit is. Obviously, there's always a limit because we're dealing with a physical device. And by the way, there's no such thing as infinity. Okay? Infinity doesn't exist. Because then it would blow your mind. I've talked to one guy that put a hologram in a hotel room in London and traveled to somewhere else in Europe, Switzerland maybe or something, came back to the same hotel room, and the hologram was still there. Yeah. Basically, remember, it's called global positioning or world mapping or something like that. I can't remember the exact term. But it remembers exactly where you put everything, right? And that's one of the issues they're dealing with right now, is that people forget. So you have this enormous library of things where people have put holograms, right? So I don't believe they've just come out with an update. They might have fixed it. But there's no way of knowing where they are without walking there, right? But the idea is that you put something on the wall and you go make a cup of coffee, and then you come back and it's still there, right? That's the scenario. You're not meant to travel between continents, obviously. Yes? Is this the future? Out. God, some people. I don't think so. Why? Like, yeah. I'll show at the end why it probably isn't, okay? All right, so that was gaze. I got to move on. I'll run out of time. The next thing we got is gestures, right? So gestures are really important because I like that one. Gestures are really important because it is the way that you interact, or one of the ways you interact with your hologram. Okay, I'll get rid of them. You have a gesture space. And the idea is that you comfortably should be able to do this, and that's your mouse click, right? That's your gesture, that's the tap, which is why it looks like that. So that's one of the other things. You got to move like a robot, because if you move your head over here and go tap, the HoloLens can't see that you're tapping, right? So your hand's got to be in there. So it takes a bit of getting used to. But the idea is you have the tap gesture, or tap and hold as well. And then you have the bloom, which is your start menu. So you go, right? What did I just do? So that's your start menu. You cannot override that. That will always work, right? Your start menu, you can always get your start menu up, which, by the way, looks like a Windows 10 start menu, because it is. More demos. Okay. You can still see that. Very good. So try and do this again here. Where's my mouse? Hello. Where'd you go? There it is. Just so we can see what's going on here while it's running. So in your gaze gesture manager, again, we got start and update, just like any other script that's attached to an object, or to your whole project for that matter. And then we have here, we have a gesture recognizer. And that's your master object that handles all your gestures, right? Again, all the nitty-gritty of figuring out when it's a tap and all that stuff has all been abstracted for you. You don't have to worry about it. And then you set up a tapped event, and you give it a thing to do. In this case, we're sending an event message. So on select, we're sending that to whatever object you're looking at, right? So if the focused object is there, it's not null, then we give it a unselect event. We send that to it. And then the update is just, again, a raycast. And every time we just look if we're hitting anything, and we set the focused object so we know what we're tapping to send the event to, right? That's it. So, and go back to our emulator. Now, obviously, I can't tap, right? Yes?
Do we get to register our gestures?
Oh, look at that. Do we get, sorry?
Can we register our gestures?
Can you register? Yes, you can. But I wouldn't recommend it as such, because you can use voice as well, which is much more accurate. The tap is really meant to be, here's your mouse click, right? Or tap and hold. Yep.
Is there a kind of drag and drop equivalent?
Yes, that is the tap and hold.
It's not kind of grab and it's tap.
Yeah, so you tap and hold, right? Okay. Yeah, so do that. And then with your head, because that's your mouse, you move, right? That's the tricky bit. That's where it gets confusing when you're used to having a mouse and keyboard. So you, oh yeah, absolutely. And you can implement different actions for the tap and hold. It could be zoom as well, right? Zoom that way or this way. You can absolutely do that. But an actual gesture, while you can, I probably wouldn't do it, because it's, how do you teach people what that gesture is? How do you make sure it's different enough so it doesn't get confused? All these sort of things, right? Like, you don't want to sort of go, you know, there. Okay, so I think this just died, but that's okay. If I press bloom, so that's just your start key, your Windows key, and then I have to point my head at it here, and enter is your tap, and I just go up to my origami thing here, because now it's installed. Hey, and I'll just tap again to say, yep, that's the one I want. And we wait. Yeah.
Can you hook up a webcam so you can see the room and then see how the things are mapped into your current room?
No. But that doesn't matter, because there's already one in there. You can live stream from a HoloLens to a screen. And you can record it as well. Is that what you meant? So you can see it. You can get the video of what you're seeing in real time if you want.
No, I think I mean the other way around. Like, can you see your current room?
Yeah.
Because here you can only see your virtual
Oh, sorry. OK, I'm with you. Can you use a webcam to project the real room here? No, that wouldn't make any sense because your spatial mapping would be way off, right? So maybe if you had one of the, like my phone recognizes my face because it got the IR, whatever that Intel technology is, I can't remember. Maybe if you have some of that or you've hooked a Kinect up or something, but not currently, no. All right, let me just move up so I don't run out of time. So here we got, and my gesture, right, my tap is what we're looking at. So now I'm going to send an on-click event or on-select event to this object, right? Just by tapping it, and it goes, hey. And the reason it's doing that, oh, hang on, is that we have the sphere commands here, and we have our unselect here. So when I select an object with the tap, it gets the onSelect event, right? And then if it doesn't already have the rigid body, which means it has physics, then you apply the physics, and then you set a collision detection mode, and that sort of stuff. And then it falls down, because suddenly it has physics. It has gravity, right? That's all we're doing. Again, super simple, right? And yes, I know, as soon as you do your own thing, you want to do something else that isn't documented, and it gets hard. Yeah, I get that. But right now, it's simple. Yes?
Just a quick one, Mark. One of the limiting factors of the uptake of virtual reality has been the motion sickness factor, right? And you mentioned that anything less than 60 hertz would, hurt that scenario. Is that the only, is frame rate the only measurement of that?
No.
I mean, what about the perceived weight of virtual objects and so forth?
Weight. Oh, I haven't thought of weight. I must admit, I haven't considered that. But there are, if your objects suddenly start floating off the wall or moving slightly when you walk around them, all those things will make your motion sickness kick in as well, most likely. And there are a small percentage of people, like 2% or something, that just cannot use a HoloLens. Their body is just not set up for it, and they get sick or they get uncomfortable or dizzy or something. And apparently that's documented. But yeah, good question though, good question. All right, I'm going to have to keep going here. So that's 2 of the 4 base things we want to look at. Oh, that was good. Yeah, thanks. Well, now you saw the animation. Hang on. This is really important as well, right? Voice is a big part of the HoloLens because anything you can see, anything with a word, you can say, right? Instead of selecting it and tapping it, you can say it. And it's super accurate. It is really, really good. Sorry. You have to select word. So anything your gaze is looking at, you can say select, and it'll tap it for you. You can't overwrite that either. And then obviously we have Cortana. So I'm a Windows Phone user. I'm that one. But Cortana works brilliantly. She's always listening on the device, and she'll help you launch apps and interact with apps. I do another talk on Cortana integration with apps, and you can do the same thing with HoloLens as well. So I'll just quickly just go on here. Yeah. So the voice in this is, oh, come on, mouse. There we go. Speech Manager, right? Again, start an update. You're going to see that a lot. So we have a keyword recognizer. This is the cool thing. You can give it any keyword. You don't have to train it, nothing. You can give it a sentence as well, and it will recognize it. However, if you have 2 sentences that are almost the same, you'll get in trouble, right? So this is a big part of it is your speech design. How do you find out commands or come up with commands that are unique enough or different enough from each other so you don't suddenly launch an action that wasn't intended? So that's probably the hardest part of this. But in this case, we just have a keyword recognizer, and then we set up a dictionary that has all our keywords. And in this case, we have reset world, which will just broadcast a message on reset. So everything gets this event. If you happen to handle it, you can do a thing, right? And then the other word we'll have is drop sphere. And the difference here is that you need to have a focused object, right? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. And then we have on drop, which is another action, another event, sorry. And then you set up the keyword recognizer down here, on phrase recognized. So again, you can use any phrase you want, which is very cool. This speech recognition works really, really well. And then you have unrecognized. You find out is there a keyword? Is the word that you said, is that in the dictionary? And then you invoke that event that was on there, that lambda function we saw up there. And that comes out like, so now we've dropped one of these balls, or spheres. And we can then see if this will work, right? Reset world. Eee, look at that. Oh, no. Oh, that was hard work. And then now, because we'll choose the other one. It's feeling a bit neglected, right? So we say drop sphere. And it goes down, right? And I don't have a particularly well-spoken English. Like, I'm Danish, and my Australian is like weird. And anyway, still gets it, right? That is how simple it is to do keywords and to do speech recognition. Right? It's really powerful. And obviously, you can have much, much more complex things that will happen. Things pop up, or you start calculations as you're in the background, or whatever it is your thing is, right? But just for the user, getting the user to that point is super simple. Yeah. Okay. So, what do we got left? Okay. So that was the custom commands. Okay. Sound. Sound is really important. It is as important as the gaze, getting that right and getting your frame rate right. Because I've mentioned with the field of view is so limited. So if you place a rocket over there and you place an elephant over here and you look that way and you can't remember what's where and suddenly the elephant starts charging you or whatever it might be, you can hear that it's coming, right? So the HoloLens sits on your head and it has 2 microphones on either ear. So 2 speakers on either ear. And they simulate what is called the head-related transfer function. Sounds very fancy, doesn't it? And that is a way of simulating real sound. So the way that I know that if someone says something over there is that they're over there, is that the sound that they're making from their voice reaches this ear before that ear, right? That's why I know it's over there. So obviously I don't think about that, but the HoloLens does the exact same thing. And it changes volume, and it has directions up and down and 360-degree directional sound. And using that in addition with all the other things makes for a much more complete experience. And people are less likely to forget where they put the holograms, right? Which does happen a lot. So we'll just try and look at that again. Oh, come on. Why is that? Oh, there it is. So sphere sounds. Again, there's a start. This is where you set up all the sounds. In this case, we have an impact. So that's when the sphere hits something. And then because you don't know what it's going to hit, it might be on a slant or whatever, there's a rolling sound as well. And then you have this on collision enter, which is what's that set up? Set up over here? No, where's that set up? Sorry. I've got my code wrong. I've got my code upside down now. Anyway, so these events, you have all sorts of magic with setting the volume to what you think it should be, and it has play, and then collision stay, you keep playing, and if it's rolling fast enough, then you keep playing the music, the sound of rolling. If it's about to stop, then you stop it. And then when you have on collision exit, then you stop the audio completely, right? So it's managing the audio and how you want it to relate to the object much more than where is the sound coming from, because that's already taken care of. You're attaching the sound to that object, right? And I would demo it for you, but I did this last night. It was fine. Did this about 20 minutes before we started, and there was no sound. And I wasn't going to go through and debug it because then it would just break something else. But you get the idea, right? So I apologize that there's one demo fail. But you just attach a script to the object with the sound saying audio start. And you can set the volume, you can set the different events for it. Does that make sense? Any questions on those four? So those are the four main building blocks of a HoloLens experience, right? We have gaze. Yep. Hang on. We've got gaze. We got the gestures. We got the voice and the sound. Right. Those are the four main ones that you need to know. That's it. Yes.
So I'm going to ask a perfectly Googleable question. But
Fantastic.
Has anybody done a Princess Leia demo?
A what?
A Princess Leia demo.
You should Google that. I don't know. Princess Leia demo. I'm not sure I get the reference. I mean, I know Star Wars, but sorry.
How to do like Princess Leia saying something on a HoloLens space? When you send sound, I kind of, that's the first thing that came to my mind as a
Right.
demo.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
Yeah. That's a good, I don't know. I don't think so. There has been some interesting things done with helicopters flying around you, and it's just for demo purposes, so you can get the idea where things are. Oh, you do that sound yourself, though. Yeah, absolutely, you can. There are demos now that have objects that projects holograms as well. I don't have it in this presentation, but as a demo, go look it up, of a guy playing a robot game. So there's deadly robot spiders that break through the walls wherever he is and jumps on chairs wherever they are. So a holographic experience, right? And then you got to shoot him with your laser. It's pretty cool. But he has an actual thing in his hand. Sorry?
Do you have to make the laser noises to shoot them up?
No, I made those for them. So that's what you'll hear. So, yeah. I always make noises.
Yeah, yeah, I got a question, sorry. So just about the gaze and like that spatial global thing that you were talking about. So the example you said is if I go outside and I see a hologram now or some kind of image that I've created, I come back in, come back out, and then I'll see it again. How can I sort of distribute my application globally to everyone? So I've got something on a specific wall that can be shown, but obviously their room will look very different to mine. So how can I get the same object to show for everyone at, in some place for them? So
you're asking how do you create the same experience that you have in this room for someone else in another room?
Yeah, so I can distribute my application pretty much.
Well, if you do that, I would say you've probably kind of raped the idea of a holographic experience, because you want them to use whatever location they're in with your app. So your app it shouldn't matter what room it's in. It should just be, well, I have this thing, I'm going to place it in this location, right?
So, so every app you create is always specific to the exact location that you're building it for?
No. It's never. It's exact to no location.
Okay.
Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah, you don't want to build for this room, because what happens when people take the HoloLens and go into the next room, right? You're creating things that interact with the world that they're in, just like if you happen to sit on that chair instead. Right, it's the same idea.
So if I've got like 5 chairs in my room and I put 5 different looking objects on those 5 chairs.
Yep.
So I've created it for that environment. Do I have to get them to set up 5 chairs as well?
No, no. You're not creating it for that environment. You're creating a holographic experience.
So it's just a distance between the actual glasses and like the lens itself and whatever you've projected.
I think you're thinking too much about the problem. You need to understand what people are trying to solve rather than what you're going to give them. Because it feels like you're saying, hey, I have these really nice red couches, and it would look awesome if I put this yellow blanket on it. But you have green couches, so you need to get red couches to make it look good, right? That's not the idea. You're going to say, oh, you need blanket? Sure, what color would you want? And you just put it on there, right? You've got to change the paradigm of what you're trying to solve, I think. It's probably the best way I can answer that. Oh, God, there's lots. You got the mic. You choose.
How does this work with the speech recognition and the sound when you have multiple of these in the same room? Is it isolated to you? Does it go in ear, or how much can you hear of the rest of the world?
Well, if you stand next to someone that's using a HoloLens, you can hear the sound that they're hearing, just faintly. But you can't do speech recognition for them unless you're really close. Like, you'd have to be really close for that.
Okay, so they don't interfere with each other when there's multiple around?
The whole collaboration idea of multiple HoloLenses is still quite new, and there's some bugs in it, but it is possible to collaborate, because that's the whole idea. I'll show you a really cool example in a minute about collaboration. Yes?
Would you be able to like take 2 HoloLenses and put them on 2 other people, but would one person be able to like put something down, like they were playing Minecraft, and one person put something down, and the other one sees the same thing?
Yep. Yeah, that's possible. Absolutely. That's collaboration, I guess is the word that I was trying to say. But yeah, if you have 2 people seeing the same thing and having the same experience, yeah, absolutely. Again, this is very new, and there are some bugs I've been told. I mean, I don't even have 1 HoloLens, let alone 2, right? But people that have 2 say you can do it, but there's some bugs in the way that you actually create that collaboration still. So it's still very new tech. Who wants the mic? Okay, another couple of questions. I need to just do the last bit. Yep.
What's the resolution? Can you see the pixels?
You can't see the pixels, no. The resolution, oh God, I actually don't know. I think it's 1280 by 720 maybe, or that sort of thing. It might be a different ratio. But you don't notice pixels. You notice polygon shapes more. So if you have a rough object with less polygons, you see that, but you don't see the pixels, no. Yeah.
For the world persistence, is it based on GPS, and how well does that work indoors then? How does it know when you leave the country? You said you leave the country and come back. How does it know?
It is based on GPS. I read the Docker one. I can't remember if I'm honest. There is very, very detailed documentation on how that works, but it is GPS, and I'm not sure. It works. Again, I think it's magic. Yeah, all right, have to keep moving, because otherwise we'll run out of time. I'm in there. Okay. That was the demo. So what's next, right? Because this is super new. I don't even have a HoloLens. By the way, you don't need a developer application invitation loop to get a HoloLens now. You can just buy one. It's just $3,000 US. And you have to live in North America. But no, you can't. They've opened up. You can buy 5 at a time if you wanted to. And for large businesses, there's now no barrier for them to actually buy them and start developing for them. So that's cool. But what's next? For me, there's a huge social question around this, because I don't want this to happen, if I'm honest. You could see, like, that could be a lot of social issues with this, because you're seeing things that no one else is seeing. And are you overlaying things on people? And are you privacy issues, moral issues, all that sort of stuff. The other thing is that you do look like a bit of a jerk. It's not the best look, if I'm honest. I probably should have put a picture of myself here. I had tried one on yesterday as well. And yeah, it's hopefully they get a little bit less Star Trek-y, X-Men type thing, because I'm not sure people will walk around with that, even with Pokemon Go. Sorry? Well, we're geeks. We probably would, right? I mean, I probably would. but the normal person is going, I'm not wearing that crap. Hell no. I don't care if it costs $4 million. Nah. Sorry? Yeah, well then, there's the whole Google Glass hole, right? Experiences so far have been very elaborate, right? Because they're selling this device. Microsoft is trying to show what's possible. I don't have all of Mars data that I can play with, right? I don't have it as a visual thing. I don't have a 3D rendering of the Mars rover, right? So don't get sucked into this idea of, I have to create, Star Trek in real life type thing, right? Because it just gets really overwhelming very, very quickly. This is probably much more what I had in mind. There are maker kits, maker toolkits that comes as apps, and you can actually you can build. There's a good example of someone building a rocket, and then he's painting it and doing things with it as a hologram, and then you can imagine exporting it to a 3D printer or something, right? Or you give it to a designer and say, put our logo on this, and this is going to be our giveaway, a swag thing at a conference. Those sort of things, I think, are much more likely to be a first generation app. And then there's the whole collaborative. I probably shouldn't tell you what the idea is, but I spoke to a potential customer yesterday about holographic application, and they had an idea that was just really quite thinking beyond the whole dashboard thing and right here, Basically, how do you set up a room? Like if you go in here, how do I know how many chairs can fit in here, right? Like without getting out measuring tapes and chairs and everything, right? So, I mean, it was much more elaborate than that. So there are certainly applications that are not the Mars rover project. I want you to do this, right? If you think what I just spoke about is interesting or mildly interesting, go have a play. Whatever you do, though, don't download this over the hotel Wi-Fi. There's a few gigs worth of stuff. But it's readily available. You can just get it today and start playing with it. And it's free. That should have said Wave 6. But I didn't have an image that said Wave 6, I'll just tell you. They are shipping waves now, lots and lots and lots. And they are now shipping to whoever, right? If you have spare cash or you can convince your company that has an address in the US, you can buy them, right? And speaking of developers doing cool stuff, here's the most simple idea that has probably the biggest impact I've seen. So,
what I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to just simply put a sphere in the middle of the bush and then just go around it and see what areas are outside the sphere.
So
and just trim them.
It's through the HoloLens he's
and,
capturing the video.
I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm going to try it out and show you guys whenever I get it done. So, this is what it looks like after trimming. I think I did a pretty decent job. Let me show you without the sphere, which by the way is low polygon, so it's not quite spherical, so it's not that great. And I could, keep going if I wanted to, but that's good enough. So this is what it looks like. I think it's pretty good. I just needed to grow a little bit more so I can trim it a little better, but I'm pretty happy with it. And that's how HoloLens can help you
do gardening. Right? How simple is that? Like, he's obviously not a designer because he just found, oh, there's a sphere, plonk, right? But there's no way he would have done that without the HoloLens or some sort of assistance, right? That would be like years of practice, and I would imagine. And it's just such a simple idea. So why try and reinvent the wheel when you can do something as simple as that? Just because he's thinking as a holographic experience, right? I don't know if my mum would run around with a HoloLens though to do gardening, but still. And then you have the other end of the spectrum. If you are Microsoft and you have lots and lots of cash and you have access to really cool technology, you get to do something like this.
Hi, today we're going to show you an exciting new technology that could fundamentally change the way that people will communicate in the future. Imagine being able to virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey, Sergio.
Yes,
how does it feel like to be holoported?
It feels great to be holoported.
So if Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device, and I'm going to wear mine, we can see each other in full 3D in real time. We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk behind this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five. That's great. Thank you, Sergio. We call this technology holoportation.
So obviously you need millions of dollars to do this right now, right? Because it requires 3D cameras, it requires not having a hotel Wi-Fi, it requires lots of stuff that we just don't have. But this is the future. This is an idea of what is possible, right? If you did follow my tweets, there'll be a link to a much longer version of this. It's really interesting, right? It's a 5-minute video on how they explain how to do it. So that was pretty much what I had. I hope I've sort of piqued your appetite for this. And again, if you don't have a HoloLens, no big deal. You can still play around with it and develop for it, right? Is there any final questions? You have 8 seconds. No.
Yes, I have three really quickly. Battery life, how long?
About 3 hours.
Cool. Second one is, where can we play them in Australia?
Where can we?
Play with them in Australia?
Nowhere.
Okay, cool. Third one is, can you catch?
Sorry?
Can you catch?
Can I catch? Yes, I can catch. Ugh.
Good catch.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Okay, one more. Yes.
Do you know if there's any official wording
make you run.
There's any official wording on like hardware revisions or
hardware
revisions?
No, I don't know. The question I always get is when are we going to have a consumer version? And I don't know. I'm guessing end of next year, something like that. Like it's not now for sure. But yeah, I just don't know. Again, I don't work with Microsoft on this at all. I just have a keen interest in it. I just want to mention this. PubConf is on tonight. I think there's no more tickets left. I don't actually know. But the Ignite talks, 5-minute talks, slides rotate every 15 seconds, and they're super funny, mainly because people forget what they wrote. So if you want, that's somewhere in the CBD in a hotel. And I'm doing one as well on Australian internet. So much material. But that's all I had. Thanks, guys.